This is Requiem Metal Podcast, episode 60, Anathema Part 2.
Times I trusted you, I'll let you back in, knowing, yearning, you know I should have run, but I stayed. Fragile dreams would be broken for you. Today I introduced myself to my own feelings. In silent agony, after all these years they spoke to me. After all these years, maybe I always knew my fragile dreams would be broken for you.
You just heard Fragile Dreams. Or fragile. How do British people say fragile?
Fragile Dreams.
Fragile Aluminium. This is the Record Metal Podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jason.
And we're following up Anathema Part 2. It's been about 30 episodes or so, but we're getting back to it.
We kind of wanted to tie up some of our loose ends, a little bit. And we thought, what better way to celebrate the summer than with utter despair, gloom, doom, and regret.
It's always good.
So, in the first part of Anathema, we talked about their early kind of rise in the British doom scene, alongside bands like My Dying Bride, Paradise Lost. They were part of the Peaceful Three, if you will.
Quickly kind of changed direction.
Yeah, around the time of Silent Enigma and Eternity. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank there. The sort of mid '90s kind of period of Anathema, they started to make a really big shift towards more atmospheric, Pink Floyd, psychedelic kind of elements working into their sound. The Anathema, for those of you who didn't get a chance to hear the first podcast, primarily it's the Kavanaugh brothers, Danny and Vincent, who are the two guitar players, and Vincent is the singer. But as you'll start to see, especially near the end of this show, Danny begins to involve himself a little bit more in the singing. He kind of
harmonizing
has more of a Nick Drake kind of vocal. He sings a couple tunes. I don't think we're playing any of them, unfortunately, though. I know he does Barriers from A Fine Day to Die and Fine Day Exit. Well, we'll get to why I said Fine Day to Die. There's a Freudian slip there for a reason.
It's their Bathory album.
But Fragile Dreams is from Alternative 4, and this definitely caught a lot of people off guard. I think, I liked it right away, but you could definitely tell that a lot of the punch that Anathema had on Silent Enigma and Pentecost and Serenades was completely gone. I mean, it was still there in some threads on Eternity in a couple of tunes. Yeah. Like Far Away and some of that stuff. There's
I guess brutal. They were never really. Well, I guess they were pretty visceral and brutal on
Serenades
and
stuff like that.
It's like been opted out for power.
Yes.
Now I think.
And I think one of the things I want to say at the beginning of a show like this is Mark and I, if you've kind of been a loyal follower, obviously we I hope come across as fairly open-minded metalheads in terms of having a diverse musical palette, and I think you have to in order to follow a band like Anathema on the journey that we're going to take you through these records here tonight, and. I mean, really, this is the same kind of shift we saw with Catatonia as well. Absolutely. Although
it's a little bit more abrupt.
I would say, it's even more abrupt and even more Catatonia still keeps roots with that sonic resonance of heaviness in some of their riffs, though, even though they're very melodic and stuff like that.
Well, even Anathema keeps that whole feedback and harmonics and
that's true.
Stuff's pretty prominent throughout their career, but
I guess in terms of this term heavy metal or what the term heavy means, I mean I really think it's a relative term, and I think
Mogwai are heavy and they're not considered heavy metal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Godspeed to Black Emperor is an incredibly heavy band at times, but
sure. And I think in order to kind of stay open-minded, I hope you can kind of appreciate kind of what Anathema's trying to do on this. This is not going to be your typical doom metal, stuff that we did a few weeks back with Candlemass, where it's utter doom riffs and things. But I would caution that the lyrics and the subject matter is as heavy duty as music gets. I mean, it's
even the sonic quality. I don't think they're ever really lacking anything as far as if doom metal if its sole purpose is to evoke that emotion of despair. They do that pretty well.
I agree, and so just sort of a word of the wise: stay open-minded for a show like this. This isn't going to blow you away with guitar solos and Sabbath riffs and those types of things that maybe you're more used to, especially if you enjoyed Anathema Part 1, which is definitely their heavier side. This is more their introspective side. This is when they discover Jeff Buckley and Radiohead, and obviously the Pink Floyd stuff continues, but they do delve, I think, deeper within themselves, and they kind of almost vomit out these horrid emotions and these horrible life experiences, and it mixes into the music and the lyrics pretty well.
I think this is kind of the first time Vincent really comes to the stuff we're hearing now where he really comes into his own as a vocalist.
Yeah.
Like he really figures out what he can do, because before he was all kind of like punching in the dark, I think.
And he hit some sour notes, I think, on Eternity. I think Eternity is definitely the transitional record.
Yeah.
It's not one of my favorites looking back on it. I think I liked it at the
It's the
time,
one I'd listen to the least.
Yeah, it's just an awkward record at times because it's a band that's in flux, you know.
Yeah.
And I think Alternative 4 is like the first, which is the record that we're going to be talking about first, where Fragile Dreams came from, is the first sort of like peg in the future direction, which is odd because in a way I think what's nice about Alternative 4 is I think the Kavanaugh brothers get an opportunity to like step backwards from the songwriting, and the guy who really takes the songwriting mantle on Alternative 4 is the bass player Duncan Patterson.
Yeah.
And this is his last record with the band before he moves on and starts Antimatter, which is a really kind of a cool band in and of itself. But
I couldn't tell you what they sound like.
they're kind of like Alternative 4 and Anathema, really.
Okay.
It's just if you continue that sound, you know. So if you're into that stuff, definitely check them out. But
and another piece of trivia,
Sean Steele.
Sean Steele from he was in My Dang Bride for a while.
Also, do you know what band he was in before My Dying Bride? This is a trivial contest here.
I can't think.
Solstice.
Ah,
Yeah, he was in Solstice. So, but yeah, anyways, Sean Steele is the drummer. John Douglas, who had been the original drummer, left, but he only leaves for this record. And luckily, he'll come back in a big way on Judgment. And he owns that record in a way, I think. But anyways, Alternative 4 is, as you heard on Fragile Dreams, and Mark was saying this, Vincent's more confident in his vocal pushes. You know, he's able to sing that like...
he's playing to his strengths as well, too.
Sure. Yeah, and that chorus in Fragile Dreams is so like haunting, you know. Maybe I always knew, you know, my fragile dreams would, you know. I mean, he hits like these notes, and that song in particular, really, every time I hear it, I think about the first time we saw them at Metal Fest. And just the level of energy and excitement there was it was the first time Anathema was playing in the US, and it was like they were one of our favorite bands at the time.
We saw them twice, didn't we?
Yeah, like twice in a 2-year span. 3 times,
Funny
actually.
thing, I've got the version of Alternative 4 I got. It's autographed by Danny and Vincent and Les, which wasn't even on this record.
Oh yeah, because Les was playing live with them, the keyboard stuff.
Well, and he was on the latter 2 records.
He was on Judgment, and was he on? I don't know if he was on Fine Day to Exit. I think he had left for Cradle of Filth by that point.
No, he left Cradle of Filth for
Anathema. Didn't he go back though? I thought he went back.
No, because what's his face, Martin from
Oh
Wedding
yeah,
Bride
that's
went
right.
away.
I can't keep. Cradle of Filth is like one of the hardest bands to keep members straight. They're like the
After a certain point, you
Spinal Tap,
you really
you know?
need to pay attention.
Yeah, Cradle of Filth's like a Spinal Tap drummer, kind of like just constantly flowing out. In fact, we'll get to him later, but there's another Anathema member that joins Cradle of Filth later. So, but what I like about this record so much is the sparseness, the loneliness, the emptiness. I think it's the best that they capture that level of sound that they've ever done is on this record. Because when they come back on the next record, Judgment, they kind of amp things up a little bit in terms of the heaviness and the hard rock factor, I'd say. Judgment has more like of a straightforward punchy in the face with the sound, whereas like Alternative 4 is a much quieter, kind of scarier, eerier record in a way. I mean, it's just like
hard rock's kind of a dirty word to a lot of people.
Yeah, but I don't want to call it just metal because it's
in the same way
metal,
like a band like ours is.
Sure, a Porcupine Tree or something.
Yeah, it's something that's like, you know, when you say the word rock, most people think of, you know, Springsteen
AC/DC or something.
But because the heavy metal or hard rock has really bad connotations with, you know, cock rock.
It's like strip clubs and L.A. You know,
Motley Crue,
or something.
Which, you know, everybody enjoys a little Crue. But
heck yeah, I just picked up a used copy of Dr. Feelgood earlier, so
it's a double disc.
Double disc. But anyways, and I think a good song to represent sort of this sort of quiet, sparse songwriting is the next song that we're going to play, and it's one of my favorites from the record. And I don't know if you have particular favorites or if this is just a record that
this is when I was
as like one whole piece. Or
my whole thing with Anathema, which I think I talked about in the last one, was I kind of gave him up once Darren White left, because he was my kind of gateway into the whole thing, and I was like, how could they possibly go on without him? So I never heard.
Wasn't this the first one you heard though? Like you didn't hear Eternity or Silent Enigma, but didn't you get this one for some reason?
I picked this one up actually at Metal Fest.
Oh, okay.
And because I was, I think I'd actually heard the track the Fragile Dreams track someplace else on a Peaceful sampler or something. And that kind of drew me back in, because at the time there wasn't a whole lot of. There wasn't really anybody that was sounding like this at the time.
No, and I think you, right around like 98, 99-ish is where you started to like kind of open up to like the Buckley stuff and Slint and kind of expand your repertoire outside of like the metal stuff. And these guys are that kind of perfect bridge, kind of like Catatonia,
totally, yeah.
Or Paradise Lost in some ways. But as I was saying before, when we saw them live, they opened with Fragile Dreams. And I remember his vocals weren't working. Do you remember that? But we were up front, so we could hear him pretty well. But he kept like yelling like louder, louder, louder. I just remember like he was so into it and so like ready to like kick the crap out of him, because we had interviewed Vincent before that.
That's
remember?
Right, yeah.
And he was just like, he was almost like a little kid.
He was
in a
juiced.
candy store.
Yeah.
He was just like, I'm so happy to do this. We're gonna kill, and they did, man. They owned that show. I think they outdid everyone at that Metal Fest.
The following year, wasn't that when they did the acoustic?
Yeah, the acoustic
show?
set.
That
with
was pretty unbelievable.
The Beatles and Jeff Buckley and Radiohead stuff.
Yeah.
That was incredible. I wish somebody had recorded that. It was like a press only thing that you and I got to be a part of, and I think Chris was there and Brian and
then afterwards we
Paula
went up
from
and
Candlelight was,
then drank some Crown Royal up in their hotel room.
Yes,
Talked about
we
Manowar.
did. We did. Maybe we'll post those Crown Royal pictures on the website.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Alternative 4, this is a good introduction into this newer sound. I think if you get into Alternative 4, if you like what you hear here, you'll probably be able to like and enjoy most of what you're going to hear for the rest of the show. I think
this isn't
litmus test.
I mean, it's kind of in the same ballpark as like that the earlier Beyond Dawn, like Electric Sulking Machine, that weird kind of.
Which probably a lot of people aren't even that familiar with Beyond Dawn.
Probably not, but it was another one of those kind of bizarre, peaceful bands that just kind of like, it was a mashing of all kinds of different genres, but it all those bands kept that same kind of like, that feeling of
depressing aesthetic,
Yeah, I mean, like the Britpop thing, but way more depressing.
It's like Slit Your Wrist Britpop or something,
Yeah, like Slow Dive stuff, but even bleaker.
And I mean, Radiohead has some bleak songs, and that's why I think I was able to get into them. They're kind of a depressing band, really. They're not terribly happy, but they took that and kind of like mixed it in with the British Doom sensibility. I think it worked really well. So. But anyways, we got Regret and Reconnect from Alternative 4, and then we're going to close things out the set with the first of a few songs in this from the Judgement record, and this is going to be the title track. So enjoy Regret. It's a builder. It's a longer song, so kind of kick back, put some headphones on, and just relax. Sip a cocktail, if you will.
As I drift away, far away from you, I feel all alone in a crowded room. Thinking to myself, there is no escape from this, escape from this, escape from this, escape from this. Fear, regret, loneliness. Visions of love and hate, a collage behind my eyes. Remnants of dying laughter, echoes of silent cries. Wish I didn't know now what touch me once again. Sometimes I remember all the pain that I have seen. Sometimes I wonder what might have been. Visions of love and hate, a collage behind my eyes. Remnants of dying laughter, echoes of silent cries. Sometimes I despair at who I've become. I have to come to terms with what I've done. Sweet taste of fate, can't outrun the past. Destined to find an answer, strength I never lost. There's a way, my future's not set, and the tide has turned, I still never learned to live without regret. Fragments of connection die. Some things just Don't drown me, bound me, self-indulgence black as coal, my sunken soul, will it ever be said? Come on and twist that knife again. Well, I'd like to see you fucking try. Never going back again. An answer won't come from me. Confront your worst enemy. What does your mirror see? Is it time to face up to me? Inequity of fate, the pains of love and hate, the heartsick memories that brought you to your knees, and the times when we were young, when life seemed so long. Day after day, you burn it all away. All the hate that feeds our need, all the sickness you conceive, all the horror you create, it'll bring you to your knees. The times when we were young, when life seemed so long.
we heard a Judgement, Reconnect, and Regret. The latter two there from the Alternative 4 record, and Judgement was aptly from the Judgement record.
Yeah. And one of the things that you're hearing on Judgement is the return. Sean Steele has left, and John Douglas, the original drummer, has come back, and I think
in a big way.
In a big way, yeah. If you listen to some of the stuff that he's doing in that, our old manager.
Do you remember, wasn't there some kind of bizarre, it wasn't just personal reasons why he left? I want to think they said something about it, or...
I remember Vincent talking about it. It was...
I mean, because I remember he said something to the fact that John Douglas thought he was a crap player.
Yeah, it was like a mental kind of
and
block.
I don't know if he went away and then just really got down to it. But he was, I've always thought he was a really interesting drummer. But when he came back after his little hiatus,
holy crap, it was almost like a whole new drummer.
Yeah,
some of the polyrhythmic stuff that he's doing on Judgement. I remember Mike, our old manager from New Moon and Northwoods Improvisers, was a huge fan of this Judgement record. I think he owned it because it was like right up there with like some of the Catatonia and Opeth stuff that he was open to from a metal perspective, even though he's more of a jazz classic.
Well, I think he got more into this more so than say like Opeth. Outside of Opeth is proggy, but Anathema shares a lot more stuff with improvised music
and improvisation,
and doing stuff with instruments that's not technically correct but sounds good.
Yep, absolutely.
Just like honking a saxophone out of key, if it gets the right emotional effect, then go for it. Why not?
Sure. And you hear that and hear like that whole middle section of Judgement when they sort of get to that crescendo part in the middle where they built towards it, and the screaming's coming in and the drumming and just
all the stuff just builds. So it's
awesome.
Another band that I think has that same kind of building power is Primordial.
Yeah.
And especially like Spirit of Earth, The Flame, that came out close to the same time as Judgement.
A couple years later, 2001, 2000.
Is it that far away?
I think it was 2000, so it's 2 years after this, because it's 98, 99.
Same era.
Yeah.
But even the vocalist kind of shares something with Vincent as far as his delivery, where he's not necessarily a traditionally great singer, but he's got a lot of power behind his voice.
For sure. And this record in particular, this was a really cool time for Peaceful, because this is when I think the people who hadn't maybe gotten into, say, 34% from My Dying Bride, the people that didn't get into Alternative 4 from Anathema, that didn't get into some of the weird
post-draconian,
like Paradise Lost, I think all of a sudden, metal and especially the British doom scene got really, really funky from like 97 to like 99. Like people kind of like thought, these bands are kind of done. And, right away, like Tonight's Decision from Catatonia, which isn't British Doom, but it's coming out of that sensibility, came out on Peaceful. Opeth put out Still Life, which to me was like a big coming out record for them. And then Anathema put out Judgement. Beyond Dawn was putting out I do believe Electric Sulky Machine was coming out right around that time, because I'm trying to think, was that 99?
That's 99.
Yeah. So Peaceful was really kind of like all of a sudden came out with all this stuff, and this Anathema Judgement came out right before I left for Europe, when I lived in Italy for 6 months, and this was one of like the choice few records that I brought to
pre-iPod, folks.
Yeah, pre-iPod, 99. And so I spent a lot of quality time with this record, let's put it that way, because when you only have like 30 CDs for 6 months, you kind of get pretty intimately with them. And I remember what's cool about this record, Judgement, is this was a record you could put on for a lot of non-metal people, and they really got into it. I mean, we just mentioned our manager, but my girlfriends at the time and just a lot of my friends that were into like all their stuff, not metal, could kind of vibe on the emotional part of it, because they could hear that like what Vincent was singing about on this record, which is some pretty deep stuff, and I'll mention that in a moment, but it was real. It wasn't like
well, I think that's
processed metal kind of.
It's really evident that this is like coming from personal experience. It's like I don't think you can play Jeff Buckley Grace to anybody and say, well, that's phony. What is that about?
Exactly.
And I think that has the same kind of aesthetic.
I'd say this is very much in the vein of the Jeff Buckley Grace. And the cover is just so evocative. It's
Supernova.
Yeah. And the color scheme, the purple and like kind of the weird magentas, and it's which probably, if you're not looking at it, sounds really lame, purples and magenta, but it
sounds like a Thanatos record I just picked up.
It's got this really really cool look to it, very cosmic in a way, kind of otherworldly. And
when I first saw it, I thought of the Carl Sagan Cosmos show, but it's almost the same cover.
Yeah, exactly. something very much like that. But Judgement packs a little bit more punch, as you'll hear in our next set of music. And it's almost like they kind of were very reserved with Alternative 4, and they went very introspective, and here it's like they're exercising a lot of those demons, you know. The solo that you're going to hear in Pitiless is probably, in my opinion, Danny's most heart-wrenching solo. I mean, he's just like almost beating the guitar just to get this distortion. And
the way he gets they're not solos as, you know, a couple weeks ago, you know, like the Chuck Schuldiner solos. No. these are almost like primal sounds coming out of the guitar, and the way he has an uncanny control over feedback, more so than, you know, almost anybody I can think of.
Sure. I'd say he's probably the best in the rock world of controlling kind of feedback, you know. And you could throw it in like with some of the stuff that like Stooges did in terms of just unleashing primal emotion or something like that, you know.
This is a little more focused.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is through like the Stooges through the scope of like Pink Floyd or something like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, British Stooges, put it that.
Yeah, there you go, the British Stooges. But one of the things when I spent some time talking with Vincent, and this was kind of around the time that we built up some pretty good relationships, especially, you know, Mark and I got the opportunity to talk to him a couple times and spend some time in the hotel with him, and really got into talking about some deep subjects. And I remember talking about this record in particular, and one song that we're not going to play, One Last Goodbye, which is a song that they play quite often live and stuff, is about Danny and Vincent's mother passing away, which happened relatively like right before I think they made this record, after Alternative 4. And so I think some of the emotions that you hear in the songs are coming out of that context of sort of like
totally.
pain,
I mean, it seems like there's the prime what was the old thing where you used to scream into a pillow, the primal therapy or whatever, primal scream therapy kind of thing. That's almost seems what it's you know, tapping into.
And that's always been a part of Anathema, going back to I think to Silent Enigma. You know, when Vincent had to kind of teach himself how to scream, you know, / sing. But here he's honed it. It's perfect, you know. And the opening trio of tunes on this record, which is Deep, Pitiless, and I can't remember the other tune. Oh, Forgotten Hopes. We don't have time to play Forgotten Hopes, but they make a really interesting trilogy. Forgotten Hopes is the one that is the upbeat tune about, you know, hey you, they're rotting in your alcoholic shell, you know. Like, I mean, it's this utter despair, but yet you feel a part of it. And it's like when you listen to Catatonia, to me, that helps me get through some of my issues in a way. Like, it's very like,
it's cathartic.
Yeah, like I don't feel like weighted down by their emotions. I feel like it's like
it like liberates the ones that are within you that you don't know how to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the, as far as like free jazz and extreme metal are some of the few forms of music that actually get those kind of emotions out of me.
Yeah. Like, people always used to be like, man, you're such a mellow guy. How come you're not like an angry, you know, like machismo metal guy? I'm like, well, I don't listen to metal for those reasons. To me, it's like very relaxing in a way. Like, it helps me get my energy. Yeah,
like it doesn't make me want to like go into a mosh pit. I mean, sure, like being a head of bolt throw or something, but
throw your arms.
But it's not in the kind of violence thing. It's more of like the brothers in arms kind of, all right, you know, come on, this kind of stuff.
And I've never been able to figure out why, you know, the sort of bad image that metal gets, and why some certain people get into it for all the wrong reasons. It's those few people that ruin it for everybody.
The skinheads.
But Anathema, to me, alongside, I think Anathema and Catatonia for me are my two favorite bands. I know Anathema's pretty high up there for you as well, but I don't know, maybe it's because of the personal connections I've had with having been able to talk to Vincent and get to know him pretty well, that just sort of made it easier to like these guys, you know.
Well, and the guys, they never gave any kind of I mean, they seem 100% genuine about everything.
And really, if the world was a fair place, everyone out there would know who Anathema is, just like they would know about who Catatonia is. Much the same way that people are starting to kind of know the name of, say, like an Opeth or In Flames. You know, Anathema and Catatonia, I think, deserve it just as much as anyone, if not more.
Well, I think they have such a huge opportunity to appeal to a larger audience than Opeth, that's for sure.
Sure.
I mean, Opeth has kind of the novelty thing going for them, I think, to some degree. I don't know if, you know, kids are more open-minded to just, you know, it's not so much about, well, you're into metal and this guy's into punk. It's kind of across the board anymore, it seems.
But sometimes I wonder if Anathema is too esoteric for some people, because they're not like a instant gratification type band, you know.
Neither is Radiohead, and I think they're kind of in the same camp.
But again, I don't think that the same fans of Radiohead are immediately aware of Anathema.
No.
Metalheads are aware of Anathema, who are sometimes, unfortunately, really into instant gratification with riffs and like solos and things like that. Whereas Anathema is more like, kind of like cosmic in a way, and it's very hard to tap into.
It's almost what like Enslaved has done for quite a while with their records, where you hear them like 2 or 3 times, and you're still kind of like puzzled after you hear them, but then it's like slowly builds, and you get more and more appreciation for what they're doing, and like, holy crap, he's doing this. And
and I would say like Anathema, Enslaved, and bands like them, and Primordial, all kind of fall into the same like almost undefinable genre in a way, of Beyond Dawn. You could throw some of their era of stuff in there.
I even really like the later on Beyond Dawn, the Rondo. It's like Frisch.
Yeah.
And it's just got like bizarre pops and beeps and
video game noise and stuff. We'll probably do a Beyond Dawn show from pretty soon here. But anyways, so we're gonna get into Deep and Pitiless, and then we're gonna close with maybe one of my probably 2 favorite Anathema songs of all time. And that's Wings of God, which is just got some just hauntingly epic chorus stuff going on for it. So all 3 of these are from Judgement. Judgement, if the gods were fair in the universe, this would probably be one of probably 2 Anathema Hall of Fame records, but that's just my personal opinion on that. So editorial over. So enjoy Deep and Pitiless and the cosmic sounds of Wings of God.
Feel my heart burning deep inside, yearning. I know it is coming. endless misconception to choose a path that led to ruin. I live for today, can't get away from the burning inside. Ashes to ash, dust to dust. So quick to point the finger when you're the
just heard Wings of God, Pitiless, and Deep from the Judgement record, which everybody should probably go out and buy.
They should, indeed. And next we're going to get into probably my favorite Anathema record that's the most non-metal record that they've ever done. So we're not playing, we played 4 songs off the first 2 because those are kind of essential, like, metal Anathema records. And the one they did after, I really got into because I had to review this as I did Judgement for.
Well, this kind of came out when we were, kind of on some kind of.
We were like almost bored with a lot of metal that was kind of going on at the time.
Yeah, this totally seemed to kind of come across like when we're getting into the songs of High and Oldham and just different kinds of stuff, and then it's like, wow, metal, or a band on a metal label is kind of satiating some of these needs for us.
And it was right around the time of like Last Fair Deal Gone Down, which we talked about a lot on Catatonia, which was a real like groundbreaking record for us. And I think that came out in the winter time, and I think this came out in the summertime.
Yep.
It was right after we had seen them at Metal Fest. It was like late August, early September.
Yeah, I think like a couple weeks after, because this is a promo version of this. I'm almost positive we got we got these like just. I think, did they play anything from this at the show?
They did. They played, I know when we saw them at the acoustic part, they did Panic and one other tune, maybe Leave No Trace or Looking Outside Inside or something like that. But the reason why, if you get a chance to purchase this, or maybe you own it and you've never really thought about it before, the cover.
I'm pretty sure all these are all available for download on iTunes as well.
Okay, yeah, and we'll post some links hopefully pretty soon for Amazon and stuff. But the cover, it's called The Fine Day to Exit, and the cover, at first, like, it's easily dismissed. It doesn't jump out to you the way that some of the Anathema covers do with instant scenes. It's a beach. It's obviously a car parked on the beach, but like.
Yeah, you're seeing it through the perspective of the front windshield. A bunch of you've got like a family photo on the instrument cluster there, like a cell phone, and then the little sticky note. It says a fine day to exit, and then we slowly see a trail of someone's clothing going to the shore. To the
shore, and obviously they're exiting on some level, and so it's almost like a peaceful yet dark, kind of serene.
You can take it different ways too.
Thing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's because you don't see the body or anything.
No, the guy could be out here. He could be stuck in a riptide swimming.
That's true. He could just be going for a swim. I mean, as an artist, what do you think of when you see like kind of a layout like this? Is this
It actually reminds me of a lot of I forget what Porcupine Tree record is. One of the mid era. God, what is it? Not up the down stair. What is?
Not Signify.
I don't know, but it has that kind of aesthetic of
Stupid Dreams. Maybe I can't remember.
Possibly. But it seems like an interesting mingling of more of like say a Radiohead kind of sensibility to a layout, all mixed with that same kind of like gut punch metal. You get some kind of initial thing right off the bat looking at it.
And it's interesting that you would mention Radiohead and gut punching metal, because the title, A Fine Day to Exit, as Vincent told us, came from the fact that Danny was messing around with some riffs as they were trying to do it. And what Danny would play is he would do this riff that sounded very much like exit music for a film, which was a song from OK Computer, which was also found on the Romeo and Juliet movie soundtrack and stuff. And he was messing around with it, and then like Vincent would be messing around too, and they'd both kind of rock into the Bathory riff for Fine Day to Die. And so they just decided to combine the two into the title track and call it A Fine Day to Exit. So it's an ode to, I think, the two polar opposites that really make up this kind of amalgam of Anathema, which is the Bathory end and then the Radiohead end. And I think obviously for a lot of people this was probably a little too light for them, probably a little too Radiohead. But as you said, if you were into the stuff that we were into at the time, like the Slints and Will Oldhams and all that kind of stuff, and Buckley's, this was like very refreshing at the time. And I remember I really loved the lyrics.
Well, it kind of validated our opinions too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Catatonia were coming out with records that kind of catered to those.
Yep. And Anathema was, when we would interview him, he'd say, Jeff Buckley's like one of my big inspirations songwriting wise, and I'd be like, yes, like
and Jeff
awesome.
Buckley was Tom York's big inspiration for singing falsetto too.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And so like all our world was fitting together, and we've always seen music as not this closed off genreification of things, but music as music is. Johnny Cash can fit alongside all this stuff. Whatever. You can throw a million different bands in there, and I think Anathema really defines that maybe better than any of the metal bands that we've done so far. I think even more than Catatonia on some level, because Anathema's gone further away than I think Catatonia has. You know, I mean, Catatonia still has its like roots.
Yeah, Catatonia comes back to, you know, they've got their kind of safe haven of Bloodbath and things like that.
Sure.
Too, like the guys have never gone completely, like that's still
They always
in a
keep their
normal
street
listening
cred metal
repertoire.
kind of going. Whereas like when we talked to Vincent on this record, I mean, he talked about changing the name of the band. I mean, he was talking about like totally how he's trying to find ways to get this to a broader audience without sacrificing the audience previous. And I think that's always been a struggle for these guys is how do we, you know, communicate the fact that we don't want to be pigeonholed as a doom metal band, you know?
Well, how many times have they tried to get another label deal and then they always go back to Peaceful because Peaceful's willing to put their stuff out?
Sure. And it's really unfortunate. Although I did hear that I think they got new management, so and maybe possibly a new label. I can't remember. I know they were shopping around their Everything demos for a while, and I don't know if anything's ever going to come with that.
That's been a while ago.
Anyway, so we're going to play a couple tunes off of this. Two very like diverse songs, I'd say. Underworld, which is probably up there with Wings of God as probably being one of my favorites, and a tune called Panic. And Panic is really cool. It's really
wasn't this the
song, stream of consciousness about like
didn't they say they wrote all
crazy or something like
all
that?
The things on the back of a napkin when they were drunk?
Is that what it was?
I think that's where they got the lyrics from. Like a lot of them are kind of nonsensical, or they're trying to put the most like feudal sounding like pre-suicide note lyrics on a cocktail napkin. Yeah.
And Underworld, if you pay very careful attention to it, there's some really kind of dark, kind of layered things. You hear them kind of saying stuff like "tie the rope around my neck," and I mean, again, you might hear this and it may sound like Radiohead, but the subject matter is just as heavy as anything we've ever played on Requiem Metal Podcast. Sure. So, you know, stay open-minded, and I think you'll be properly rewarded. Then this is going to blend into a song from the last full-length original that we're going to be looking at.
When did that come out? In 2002?
Natural Disaster was, I think I was teaching. I was downstate when it came out, so it's definitely 03 or 04, but I'll take a look and we'll mention it when we come back. Wow, I just killed Mark's
you owe me your copy there, dude.
All right. So anyways, we've got Underworld, Panic, and then our opening tune from this, Balance.
Intentions are born.
twisting on pins into my eyes and dragging on the ceiling below you, fixing up the walls with your crooked hands while you're miles away, miles away, miles away. I didn't think it'll all end up like this. The spiders on the wall and the stink of piss. Dead heads lying in the corner, staring at me, making me feel bad. I put my hands up to my eyes, but the holes in my palms I can find a way to cover you, cover you, cover you. I can feel my chest crushing inwards, sucking through my skin into my brain. Oxygen pushing on the window, cracks in the glass let it slip away. I start to cry, I keep on laughing over my eyes and scratched its thighs, and then it ran away, ran away, ran away. For all the times left, all the time in my hands circle round, and I fell, colors fall once again, once again, once again, once again, once again, once again. Razor blades floating in a warm bath, air bubbles in your veins, turning my hands black. Whispers coming from the next room, window cleaner, keep on spying. I put my hands up to my eyes, but the holes in my palms I can find a way to cover me, cover me, cover me. 12-ton hammer from my breakfast, slimming up the edge of catatonic blood. Multiple decibel inscriptions, trying all I can with miles an hour. Half-face ray and moving downwards, slipping all the time, going out to side and screaming all the way, all the way, all the way. Numbers counting down beside me, solar system clouds circling around my head. Thoughts deep hanging from the ceiling, these living up the gums of the second sun. I heat my hands and my legs are crying. You put my neck up and snap my spine, and we should die away, die away, die away. For all the times left, all the time in my hands circle round, and I fell, colors fall once again, once again, once again, once again, once again, once again.
That was Balance from A Natural Disaster, and Panic and Underworld were before that, From a Fine Day to Exit. So we're going to kind of close things out here, and I guess we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that Anathema does have other records. In 2001 and 2002, they put out the Resonance Part 1 and Resonance Part 2 on Peaceville. Kind of just like I don't even want to say greatest hits, but
it's just like the Mighty Bride Meisterwork stuff. I mean, it's if you're a completist, then it's cool, but if not, then it's not that big a deal to have them.
There are a couple cool things on here, like the re-recording of Sleepless, the acoustic Far Away. If you don't have Nailed to the Cross, 666, that's on here. So there's a couple things, couple cool covers, Better Off Dead, and one of the few. I thought there was one other cover. Oh, Goodbye Cruel World was on there as well, and then. The most recent thing that Anathema's put out, besides Natural Disaster in 2004, is they did shop around some demos in 2007 called the Everything Demos.
I've heard a couple tracks, but
some cool stuff. You've got it, I've got it too. But it never got put out on like anything official. We just kind of got them offline, I think, through a friend, and it's good stuff. It's just it never found the light of day, and I doubt it'll ever be properly recorded, maybe as a bonus thing down the road.
Sure.
And most recently, though, last year, they put out Hindsight, which is taking songs from really these records that we've been covering, going back to Fragile Dreams, One Last Goodbye.
Just doing basically acoustic versions.
Just all acoustic versions and stuff like that. And it's a really really nice record. But Natural Disaster, real quick, as we sort of exit things out here. This was mostly written by Danny, the brother, and he does some singing on it as well, which is pretty cool. And he has more of a Nick Drake kind of vocal style to him, more breathy.
More breathy, yeah.
And from what I've read, this is kind of a breakup record in a way, kind of in the way that Beck's Sea Change was like a breakup record. This is sort of the same thing, and it's like him sort of like expunging all this like sort of negative energy into like this very focused sort of thing. But again, I don't know for sure. That's just speculation from what I've heard. So, and the tune we're going to kind of close things out is the song that closes Natural Disaster out, and it's an odd one for sure. It's instrumental, which this has several instrumentals on the album. Are You There, which is kind of instrumental. No, not Are You There. Is it Are You There? It's the second tune. I don't want to rip it. Closer. Okay. Closer is what Balance sort of blends into, and Closer almost sounds like one of the songs from Dark Side of the Moon or something. It's kind of an odd tune, but we're going to close with...
We get some blast beats, too.
Yeah, well, this one we're closing with is called Violence, and this ends the album, and it does some... Well, it's not a proper blast beat. What were you saying it actually was?
It sounds like instead of doing the typical blast beat, it's almost like a weird, like just like this strict like Dismember the doot kind of beat, but then he does like weird shuffles throughout it and then hits the hi-hats. It's really kind of just bombastic, crazy playing.
And it's a cool build. It has a kind of a Mogwai mono kind of feel where it's just sort of this like sort of
actually, it kind of reminds me of like some stuff that Lombardo was doing in Phantom Oz.
Yeah, just like the drumming stuff for sure. But it's a neat tune to sort of close things out. And again, I'd urge you, if you like this stuff, 2 thumbs up on all 4 of these records that we've been kind of talking about. And
we'll have links in the show notes if you want to help us out at all. Get them through Amazon, and we'll get a little kickback to keep our operating costs low.
Sure. And send us an email at requiempodcast@gmail.com if you have comments or want to tell us we're doing a good job, bad job, ugly job, whatever you're into.
And leave us comments on our website as well at requiempodcast.com.
Yeah, and there's some cool links and different things that we have up there. So cool. So for Anathema, Violence, I'm Jason.
And I'm Mark.